Thank you very much for having me here today. It is your first interview, I think, with the Greek audience, or have you done it before? It's first time.
It is my first time, and definitely thanks for having me. So very much excited to plunge into that, and it's actually, yeah, it's my first time actually.
Great. So in order to start, would you like to share with us some things about Mintos? Most of our audience already knows about Mintos and what the company does, because we have already made an interview and a review for your platform a few weeks ago. But in case someone doesn't know, would you like to share us a few things about your company, how you started, also things like that?
Sure. So at Mintos, so what we do, we provide a marketplace for investing in loans. What it means is that on Mintos, retail investors, so anyone starting from as low as €10, can come on and invest in loans which are issued by lending companies all across the globe. So basically, with just a few €100, investors already can build a well-diversified portfolio and earn return on their capital. So far, we've seen that investors are earning on average around like 8 to 10% per annum after all the recoveries and so forth. And what we believe, it is a good addition to any investment portfolio.
Great. Why Mintos? How did you have an idea for Mintos? What was your background? Something like that?
Sure. Well, we've been around for a while already. So we launched in 2015 the first iteration of the platform. Obviously, we have evolved over time, and a lot of things have changed since early days. But there's still the premise of us bringing loans as an asset class has remained. So my background before that has been I was in investment banking. So I used to work for one of the Nordic investment banks here in the region, so helping with M&A. And then I did my MBA, did an MBA in Paris, in France, and in Singapore. And then thereafter, basically was looking what to do, and was very excited about fintech, financial technologies, and then in particular about, at that time, still novice idea of allowing retail investors to invest in loans. And then basically, as I said, the rest is history.
We all know that Mintos practically is the largest P2P platform in Europe. What was so special about your platform that gained so much traction, making it so popular and large?
Exactly so. So we are perhaps the largest player in Europe when it comes to investing in loans. So according to some data, market data, so we do hold around 45% of the market share. Today, we do have more than 400,000 users on Mintos platform, and they in total have funded already more than €7 billion of loans on Mintos. So definitely, we have had fair share of success in scaling the business. I think it all comes down to the business model and actually really providing value to both sides actually on the marketplace, because it's a two-sided marketplace. So on one side, we do have retail investors. So what we provide is good and great risk-adjusted returns. So for their capital, they can invest, and that is in an asset which is unique, which is not highly correlated with other assets, and that's kind of provides good value to any retail investor, and it's easy, transparent, and can start very small. And then on the other side of the marketplace, when it comes to the loan supply, we provide basically a solution or opportunity for the lending companies to use another funding source. So the loans do come on Mintos from the lending companies, which use Mintos as a funding source to fund the loans which they have issued in across the world.
So to be clear, you are connecting the investors in your platform with the loan originators. You don't invest your money, the money from the investors on your own.
No, so we don't really touch the borrowers. So we don't issue the loans. So instead, we do partner, or we provide our service actually to what we call lending companies. You can call them also loan originators. So we do provide service to them. Today we have around 70 different lending companies from 34 different countries using Mintos. So the process goes actually, if we simplify, it's that the borrower goes to the lending company. The lending company checks the borrower, the underwriting, does underwriting, checks the credit scores and so forth, issues a loan, and then that loan is placed on Mintos, and then it is available for investors to invest in. And then when the borrower makes a repayment, say there's a borrower in Indonesia, they make a repayment to the lending company, that money is transferred to us in Mintos, and then we distribute it among investors who have invested in that particular loan.
How Mintos ensures that the loan originators act in a good faith and provide the accurate information about their companies and how it is each time? How do you do the due diligence to be correct?
So to start with, Mintos is not an open marketplace. So before we actually connect any lending company to Mintos, they do undergo due diligence, and that involves quite a bit of things these days. And also what we should emphasize is that the lending companies which use Mintos, they in many cases are established players in their market, or they've been operating in lending for quite a while. So those are not kind of 5-people companies. So some of the lending companies are employing like thousands of employees, and they have fairly significant operations. They're the same 11 group, so they do have operations in almost 15 countries, and they do employ like quite a few people. So they are established players. And for us, what we do in the due diligence is basically we do check the underwriting process, how the loans are issued. We do check the recovery procedures. We do check obviously the cohort basis for the loan performance, and like plenty of other data before we do connect the lending company to Mintos. When it is connected, so we do connect them through API. So basically we get a real-time information. So when the borrower makes a repayment, we get it also in our systems, and that also is actually available for investors to see. And there as well, afterwards, we basically just continue monitoring, and if we see any discrepancies, and we will actually see it like super fast. But in general, it's fairly kind of automated process today already, I would say.
So a few weeks ago, Mintos has proceeded and take a European investment license from Latvia. Is that right?
Yes, so that is a big milestone for us. So we did receive which is a European-wide license, so we can passport it across the whole Europe. So it is investment firm. Basically, we became authorized investment firm under the MiFID, which is fairly established regulatory setup, and that means that we are now transitioning to a fully regulated setup where the loans will be packaged into the financial instruments, and then basically investors will invest in loans through the basically very well established setup, which is through financial instruments. So that comes quite a few benefits for investors. Well, first and foremost, it's that we are regulated. So we do have a regulator who is overseeing our activities, and there went a lot of effort in basically putting together all the procedures, processes, and other things which are required by the regulator. And then there are increased transparency for investors, so they're going to get even more information about where they invest. And then other kind of security measures, such as that the funds are segregated. Also, we fall under the investor protection scheme. So in case Mintos would go out of business, investors are protected. So it brings a whole lot of additional benefits to investors. And in general, it's just is a natural step for us in bringing loans as an asset to the mass market. So we do work within finance, and that is a very regulated space, and we are happy that we received the investment firm license. We also did receive electronic money institution license, which we will use for other services, to offer other services to investors. And all in all, very much excited about the future of Mintos, and with a license and capitalizing on those licenses. So that was definitely a big milestone for us.
Nice, very nice. Congratulations, by the way. Oh, indeed, it is a big milestone because it's needed for the peer-to-peer platform and the safety of the general investors. Do you believe peer-to-peer industry is here to stay for, let's say, 15, 20 years or more?
I wouldn't necessarily call it kind of peer-to-peer industry, and it is. I mean, these days it's hard to say like what exactly is peer-to-peer. So ourselves, we actually don't call peer-to-peer lending because we are not issuing loans to the borrowers. What we provide is access to retail investors to invest in consumer loans and in small business loans. That's what we bring to the table for retail investors, and in that respect, I'm very much sure that it's gonna be. It's only kind of the beginning of bringing this asset to retail investors, and I think with the technology today, and also now with kind of a fully regulated setup, we can scale it significantly, and I'm definitely sure that it's going to be here for a long term. It still should be viewed that it's as an investment. Obviously, should be only part of the total portfolio. So loans, in our opinion, is a great investment, but it should be part of a well-diversified portfolio. So I think now, these days, we're going to see more and more kind of new assets coming to the table for retail investors, and loans definitely going to be one of those.
One more personal question for you, Martins, is do you believe that the best investment opportunities in general, they come from a period of crisis, like the one we lived with the pandemic for the 12 last months or something like that?
Yes and no. So yes, from the fact that it was a short-lived crisis. Well, if you look at the markets, right? So the markets recovered super quickly, and obviously for those who had the guts and cash available to invest in, say, equity markets in March 2020, yeah, well, that was definitely a good time to invest. So. Was it clear at that time that it's going to be that short-lived? Well, most likely not really. So every crisis gives an opportunity, and especially when it comes to more, say, the same equity type of instrument. For debt instruments, say, as for loans, it may be less so because it's kind of fixed income, right? So yes, the interest rates can increase, but they're most likely not going to increase that much, and they can recover kind of also differently. So I would say that crisis is for sure an opportunity for those who do have guts and cash available to invest at that time. So, it's obviously not kind of that easy when you are in the middle of the crisis. So with the hindsight, it's super easy to look back and say, hey, well, all of us should have bought equities in March last year, and we would have basically doubled our money today, which actually wasn't like that easy decision, I think, last year. So, yep, I would say it's kind of goes both ways. It can be, but it's not that obvious, I guess, in the middle of crisis.
Yes, that's right. Was Mintos in a meaningful way affected from the pandemic situation?
Oh, we definitely were affected, and we definitely saw the first hand that investors are basically putting on hold their investments, and basically some of them also stopping to invest and withdrawing the cash, which we attributed to kind of overall uncertainty about the future when the pandemic hit, and also that many of investors, what we saw, they actually were those opportunistic and also brave investors in a way who did invest in equities at the time. So basically, they rebalanced their portfolio from, say, loans and from Mintos and invested in equity markets, which were like the prices were very appealing. So we saw that, and then the pandemic obviously also affected the other side of the business. So we saw that certain countries and certain group of borrowers were not able to service the loans. So all in all, basically, that ended in more non-performing loans than we would kind of expect in the usual times, and many of those will end up in recovery. So definitely, we also saw underperformance on the loan supply side, which now, having looked back, this actually wasn't that dramatic. So we are looking perhaps at something like 8-9% potential kind of capital loss for 2020. So given the magnitude of crisis and the asset which you offer, I think that actually was a fairly okay result.
Do you believe that the investors that are going to invest in your platform are looking more for a monthly passive income that they gain, or do you think that they do it for more like a long-term net worth building, or maybe both?
I think both. I mean, it's not really mutual exclusive. I think it's both. It's basically fixed income and loans. What we offer is a good passive income. So basically, you invest and you get cash flow every month, and you can live on that cash flow, or you can reinvest. So what we do see is that most of investors actually do reinvest. Some do use it as a kind of as a passive income. Basically, you have your capital invested. Say you invest, I don't know, 5,000 euros. Every year you get back like 500 euros, and you use it for whatever needs you have. But most of the investors do actually build for the long term, and they actually reinvest the interest rate, and they continue adding more to their portfolio. So I would say that it's kind of the combination of both, and with more of those who are building toward the long term.
So they are
as any other kind of type of investment, I think it has to be viewed as a long-term investment. So it's not, I mean, what we offer is not kind of get rich quick type of investment. So it's not crypto, for instance, where you invest and you would want to see, I don't know, like what you have seen, like tens of times of returns, right? If not even like hundreds of times of returns. So this is more kind of a long-term, less about speculations.
Yes, so they are quite efficient in order to let the compound effect of their money within the platform in order to get more benefits as the time passes, because the money that they get, if they reinvest it in your platform, they are compounding.
Yep. Well, as I said, there's no free lunch available except for the compounding interest. So compounding interest is definitely very strong force, and not only when you invest in loans, also the same if you invest in equity markets, or you invest in, I know, in rental real estate or any other kind of income producing assets. So the compounding is definitely a huge booster for the long term return.
Could you give us a couple of tips for our audience in order to get the best risk-reward ratio from your platform on their investments?
I think we would start with actually that you have to build a diversified portfolio. So loans is a great asset to invest in, we believe, but it still should be only part of the portfolio. So there should be also perhaps other assets in which you can invest, so the same ETFs or maybe stock picking as well if somebody wants, or real estate, or crypto these days, whatnot. So it should be part of the portfolio. When it comes to investing on Mintos, the same applies. What we definitely believe is that for the most or for the vast majority of investors, the best is to invest across all loans and in a diversified way, so that you get consumer loan in, I know, the same Indonesia, small business loan in Poland, like a loan in Mexico, a loan in Africa, so that you are diversified, because diversification definitely reduces kind of the risk of one kind of loan having significant impact on the returns. So in diversified way, sure, if somebody feels that they know the market and they have like certain preferences or kind of belief, then they can also in a way kind of loan pick, the same as kind of stock pick. But for the vast majority, we would say the best is just to diversify and trust the asset class and basically invest in the long term.
An important question that many may have is, at the end of the day, Mintos a safe place for the investors?
I think it has to be. I mean, there's no safe place like when it comes to investing, apart if you do invest in, I don't know, US government bonds, right? So, and even then they can actually default. So, like, it's super unlikely, but it can default. So any investment going to carry risk, so that has to be definitely emphasized. So, and the same goes with investing in loans. So when investors invest, they do have to be ready to take on risks. So because if you do invest at, I don't know, the same 8, 10, 12% a year, then obviously you have to assume the risks. Otherwise, there's no kind of free lunch in that respect, that there is kind of zero risk and then double-digit return. So that's unfortunately that doesn't work. But having said that, we do believe that it is a very good investment, good addition to any portfolio, and that provides a good uncorrelated return, and it's a good kind of risk-adjusted return for the risk investors take. The return is actually, in our opinion, very good.
What do we have to expect from Mintos in the upcoming months?
So for us, the next milestone on the roadmap is to finish the transition plan. So we obtained the license. Now we are into the transition plan to transition to the note setup. So the financial instruments we're going to call notes. So that's going to be fully regulated setup. So that's going to take a few months for us. And then thereafter, so basically we will capitalize on the investment firm license, so which is basically a brokerage license, which allows us also to offer other investment products, other financial instruments to investors. So we definitely going to continue expanding on the loan supply side and bringing on more loans from different countries and different lending companies. But also we will expand to other assets, and we are working on adding ETFs, so exchange traded funds on the Mintos. And then basically that will allow investors to build even more holistic investment portfolio in one platform on Mintos. So that's something which we are quite excited about to bring on in the next, basically, not necessarily next few months, next few quarters would be more precise.
Yeah, that's great news. I hope I was going to hear something like that, because it gives you even greater assets also, and investors that want to capitalize in other asset classes like ETFs that you mentioned. That sounds very promising for Mintos. That's nice. So great. Thank you very much for today's interview and for your time. I hope the best for Mintos, and I think we are going to see nice things in 2022. Hopefully without the pandemic interrupting the whole process. And yeah, thank you very much, Martin.
Likewise. Thank you, Lucas. It was great having me.
Great. Have a nice day.
Thank you.